If you want to help more people with your work, selling is 100% the solution, but not in the way that you're used to. In this video, I'm going to talk about how I go about selling in a non-salesy way and how I've helped hundreds of other coaches overcome their fear of selling, rejection, and do it in a way that allows them to stand out. So, the first thing that we need to talk about today is selling needs a makeover, because I'm sure, just like me, you have been sold by some guy who makes all of these assumptions about what we need and what is best for us. That is not the type of sales I'm talking about. I'm sure like some women have done that too, right? Like my DMs are full of people who are messaging me who don't know me, who don't know anything about my problem. That is not what I'm talking about when it comes to selling. There's no cold DMs, no aggressive tactics. We do not do that. That is not our vibe, right? Selling is about connection. It's about having a conversation, learning about where your people are and how you can help them with your coaching, right? And so the first thing that I want you to do is I want you to start paying attention to good sales experiences that you have had, right? And start noting that, because however you have been served, the customer service, the sales experience, the way that you bought something, right? And that you enjoyed it, that's usually how you will like to sell for your ideal clients too, right? So start paying attention to when you've had good sales experience. You would think back to them, but just moving forward, pay attention like, oh, I bought this thing and like, I really liked it. It didn't feel salesy. It didn't feel pushy. It felt really good. What was it about it that you liked? Start noting those things. Now, the second thing that we have to talk about is a lot of coaches think of giving their freebies away, their social media content away, and they think of that as service. And then they think of selling their program as being salesy, as that's not as valuable. That's not as good, right? You often hear coaches say, give value, right? And so they're like, oh, value is free things. But how I think about it and this approach, like how I think of it, has allowed me to have a full-time coaching business for 10 years with clients who sign up every single month, right? Because I think of selling as service. I think of my programs as a way to help clients get better results. These are not all, these are some of my clients, right? These clients right here, they have paid for my program. They've got these amazing results, and you will not find them in Facebook groups asking, how do I find clients? I'm stuck. This is what's going on, right? I see the same coaches in Facebook groups and on social media asking, how can I grow my business? How can I get clients? Nothing's working, right? Because they have not invested in a program to get support, or maybe the program, wasn't a good fit for them, right? So we have to do our due diligence and like trust our intuition. But most of the coaches who get the best results are the ones who have invested, and the same is going to be true for your clients. Because think about it, if you're giving away free information online, it's only going so deep. You haven't done an intake with them, you haven't had a conversation with them, you are limited to how much information you can give them, right? So really switching your thought around, hey, your program is actually the way that people are going to get a better result. So selling your program is actually getting your audience, your community, better results. And that reframe can be really helpful. So another thing that often comes up in the spiritual space, right? Because I am a spiritual business coach. I work with a lot of spiritual coaches, healers, Reiki practitioners, shadow work coaches, Enneagram coaches, relationship coaches, right? Like they're very tapped in spiritually. And in the spiritual communities, there is this idea that I could never sell work that helps somebody heal, that helps them realize they have the tools within themselves, right? And the problem with that is we live in a society where we need money to survive, right? And so for me, I am going to have a much bigger impact. I'm going to be able to help more people if I am working full-time for myself, right? Helping coaches share their gifts and help more people than if I was to have to work at a corporate job, right? For 40 hours a week. And then how much energy, how much time am I going to have left over to then make a big impact? Probably not that much, right? And so I think shifting that everybody is allowed to kind of follow what they want, but I definitely don't believe that you are less spiritual if you are charging for this work, right? There are a lot of jobs that, are not benefiting humanity, not benefiting the planet. There's just so many arguments you can make for that. So you have to check in, but if this is really what you're meant to be doing, coaching and helping others, like you owe it to yourself and to the people that you're going to impact to lean into that. And if you have financial responsibilities, there's nothing wrong with that. Another thing going along with this is a lot of times as humans, we have our own money mindset and scarcity work to do, right? And I always tell my clients, do not make assumptions about somebody else's financial situation, because just because you wouldn't pay for that doesn't mean somebody else wouldn't pay for that. And when you bring your own baggage, it clouds the whole sales process, right? So I want you to keep that in mind too. Hey, I'm not going to make assumptions about somebody else. Okay, another thing that I think we need to address is rejection with that, right? Because a lot of coaches will be like, I'm afraid to put myself out there and to share my program because what if they say no, right? And one of my mentors, Jack Canfield, in his book, The Success Principles, he always says, no just stands for next opportunity. And that always stuck with me because you will get no's. But the thing that is really cool is a lot of those no's end up turning into yeses. People need to spend time with you. They need to learn your style, right? What is your coaching process? How do you do things? And so if you offer them an opportunity to work with you right away and they haven't built that trust and see you as the expert, then a lot of times they're going to be like, no, I don't have the money, right? Which I don't have the money. That is rarely ever the case. Really what they are saying, but they're being nice, is I don't think you're the coach for me. I'm not ready to do this right now. I'm not totally sold on this idea, right? But just with a little more time, a little more of like your content, right? If you're posting the right content, then that no a lot of times turns into a yes. Like probably I would say like 80% of people who have said no to me at one point end up saying yes at another point. So I remind myself of that too, right? It's just next opportunity. A lot of no's turn into yeses later on. So that is another thing to kind of keep in mind. And the last one that I want to talk about is this idea. Well, actually, I have two more. So one is this idea that if I do these salesy posts, if I do sales posts where I talk about my program, where I talk about who I serve and what I do, which is one thing that I recommend. These are identifiers I talk about a lot. This is just one of the sales mechanisms I teach in Aligned and Signed, but this is an example of a ladder post, which is one sales mechanism I teach in Aligned and Signed. And this post right here I did, and Susanna saw it. We then had a conversation, because that's another thing that you guys have to remember is just doing a post like this, you then do not just go into the sale, right? You have a sales conversation, which is another thing that I teach in Aligned and Signed, turned into Susanna signing up for Aligned and Signed. And she is an awesome client. I have helped her with her confidence. I've helped her with her content. I've helped her with her sales. Like, I love working with her. And if I didn't do this post, she may not have signed up to work with me, right? And so a lot of times coaches will be like, I don't want to do sales posts. I don't want to talk about, my program or what I do or blah, blah, blah. I just want to like give value and connect and have it come naturally. Well, what if that those sales posts turned into $5,000, $10,000 a month in sales for your coaching business? What if it connected you with the exact people you're here to help and you love helping? Like, would you feel differently about them? Because usually the answer is yes. Yes, Sarah, if it's working, I love it. I'm so happy to do it. And the other thing that goes along with this is it's like, oh, well, I see other people doing those posts. Like, I don't want to just blend in, right? Well, first, other people are doing those posts because they work really well. And second, your sales posts are such a small percentage of your overall business, of the overall flow of your business. What really makes you stand out is your mission, your story, and who you help and how you infuse that into your content, okay? It's not just this one post, right? Because it could seem like, oh, Sarah's like other business coaches, but actually not really, because Sarah's more tapped in, she's spiritual, she has the aligned and signed framework, you know what I mean? So there's so many other things that are going to make you stand out, your energy, how you show up versus just one single sales post. So I want you to remember that when you're like, oh, this is feeling like I'm looking like everybody else. You shouldn't be if you're following the flow. And I'll put the flow for aligned and signed below in the description. So if you're like, oh, I'm curious about the flow that Sarah's talking about or she teaches, I'll link it below. So I hope that this helps. Kind of think about which of these really spoke to you, because whichever one it is, that's probably the one that you need to lean into more. And you can leave a comment below and let me know your takeaway, or you can send me a DM. I'll also put a link to Aligned and Signed below, because we definitely talk about the fear of selling and how to sell. Like, I give you different sales mechanisms that you can use in your coaching business, but I want you to keep in mind that it's a whole flow, right? So if you aren't clear on your mission or your story or your ideal client or your content or any of that, like, we need to do that first, because then the sales process will feel so much easier. A lot of times coaches get in and they're like, hey, I want to sell, but like, I'm afraid to sell. And what really is the issue is the lack of clarity, right? The lack of clarity on how do I sell in a way that feels good, or how do I attract ideal clients with my content. So some things for you to think about. I hope that this video was helpful. I hope it gave you an aha moment. I know for me personally, seeing that my clients get better results when they're actually in my program versus just free content, that free content can actually just kind of keep them, overwhelmed and spinning in circles. That was a big aha moment for me. But then also learning different sales mechanisms that actually worked, that made me feel a lot more confident too, because when you're doing posts and it's converting to dream clients, then you're like, okay, this is worth it, because this is why I do this. I want to help the people that I'm here to help. So, all right, let me know your takeaway below. I will link some resources for you in the description. And until next time, bye, friend.